Hello and welcome to Spinster's Library. I'm Claudia and today I want to talk about Mort by Terry Pratchett, which was published in 1987. I don't really know where to start with this because explaining the Discworld would take a whole video in itself, and those videos have already been made. I don't really need to do an introduction to Discworld kind of a video here, especially since you clicked on this video. I'm assuming you already have some idea about what this book is about. But just in case you don't, Terry Pratchett's Discworld is an epic fantasy world on which he set dozens of novels, some of which are loosely connected into series based on various settings and protagonists. Mort is the fourth Discworld novel to be published, and it's the first to center on death as a major character. Most Discworld novels are satire at heart. They're parodies of specific stories, folklore, concepts, cultures, and Mort is no different. In this case, the concept being satirized is death. Death is, in his own words, an anthropomorphic personification. I cannot believe I just managed to say that on the first attempt. He's a scythe-wielding skeleton draped in a black cloak who lives or exists in a little cottage out of time that's decorated in What have you got to say for yourself? That is 100% not the framing I had before. This will just have to do. Where was I? Death. Yes, he lives in a little cottage out of time and space, which is decorated in shades of black and has a very distinctive skull motif in the interior decorating. His job is to guide the souls of the departed when they die. Where exactly he's guiding them to, only they know that. So this sounds like a pretty tricky concept to pull off, and you'd be right in thinking that. But Terry Pratchett does pull it off, and he does it beautifully. The way he does it, I think, is by having this very heavy and gloomy concept of death combined with a plot that's... Alright, I'm just gonna have to chuck my cat out. I have two cats, and a lot of viewers don't know that because there is Nightmare Cat Minerva, who's very cute and very needy, but can be an absolute, you know what. But actually there's another cat in the room and you wouldn't even know it because he just sits in his cat bed and is good. God, where was I? Terry Pratchett pulls off the concept of satirizing death in a beautiful way because he combines this tricky idea with a plot that's very familiar and fun. In the book, we follow Mort, who's a teenager who, like every other teenager in every coming-of-age story ever, is a bit of a misfit in his family and his community. He's tall, he's ginger, he's clumsy, etc., etc. You know exactly the type of protagonist I'm talking about. He takes up a position as Death's apprentice, and the plot unfolds like every apprentice story ever. There's a lot of mucking out the stables in the beginning, but slowly Mort becomes more confident in his duties, until Death one day gives him the responsibility to do the job alone, which leaves Death some time to do some soul searching of his own, and which gives Mort some time to mess everything up. It is a predictable plot. You know what's going to happen and you know how it's going to be fixed. You know the story beats of this because you've seen the same story told time and time again. And that gives the story more time for exploration of the theme of death through satire. The characters are all takes on specific archetypes, but Terry Pratchett makes you care about them all, like Death, the aforementioned scythe-wielding skeleton, who also happens to like cats and just wants to feel a human emotion for a change. There's Mort, who's all the teenage awkwardness of this kind of story, who desperately wants to make a mark in the world. There's Isabel, who's Death's adopted daughter, who's bored out of her mind, and Albert, who's Death's mysterious butler slash cook with secrets of his own. I always think of Terry Pratchett as a somewhat adaptation-resistant author, and this book just confirmed me in this conviction, because so much of the fun of Mort is tied up in the medium itself. not just Death's notorious way of speaking in small caps, which is used to great effect in the second half of the book, where Mort becomes more comfortable with his duties, shall we say, as he sort of descends, ascends, slithers into deathness. But also there's so much fun in the descriptions, in the storytelling, the way that Pratchett sets up scenes, the way he switches between them. It works for the jokes extremely well. It's a hilarious book. But it also works for those little morsels of wisdom that are sprinkled throughout this book, just they are sprinkled throughout all of the Discworld novels, and that are what makes books like this one so endlessly quotable. I want to give you one example of Terry Pratchett's wit in this book that's only possible in the written medium. And the joke here is so specific to the written medium that I can't even read it out to you, because then that wouldn't work. It will ruin the joke. So allow me to just put it on the screen and you have to read this for yourself. This is a quote from Mort. I still can't look at that without laughing. It's so clever. The whole book is clever. I mean, that's a word that you really cannot overuse when describing Terry Pratchett's writing. It's so clever in its characterization of death. Like the whole story, we see him having this, I want to call it a midlife crisis, for lack of a better word. He's trying to find the humanity within himself, even though he's very well aware that he is biologically incapable of having feelings. But still, he tries to find himself, and he does this in a series of hilarious vignettes, like him trying to dance the conga at a party, or going to the pub, or going fishing. Death's quest to understand humanity leads to some realizations about it, and that means that we, the readers, are treated to these realizations served up to us from the point of view of an outsider. Here's an example of that. "That's mortals for you," Death continued. "They've only got a few years in this world, and they spend them all in making things complicated for themselves. Fascinating." But what I was saying is that Death tries so hard to find the humanity in himself, and we, the reader, see that in one very brief instance, very early on in the book, where Death is out in the city of Ankh-Morpork, and he finds a sack of drowned kittens. And this is such a stark image in this book of comedy of Death's reaction to these dead cats, because if there's one thing that we've learned about Death very early on, is that he likes cats. And in that moment, his anger at this injustice and at this cruelty is just like a flash on the page, and you instantly understand this character. It's genius writing. It's beautiful. So yeah, you could say I quite like this book. I like Death as a character. He is ubiquitous in the Discworld books. He's appeared in every single one that I've read, and I'm pretty sure he appears in most, if not all of them. I'm not despite evidence to the contrary, I'm not a huge fan of the Discworld series in that I haven't actually read that many of them. I've read maybe 10, which in the grand scheme of things isn't that many, because there's, I think, 30 or something like that. But every time I return to Terry Pratchett's writing, it feels both fresh and comfortable at the same time, because you just know you're going to be treated to an absolute experience of comedy, of storytelling, but also a way of thinking about the world that makes you think, which is a lot of things to be packed into what's essentially a parody. So would I recommend this book? Yes, obviously, but not to everyone. I know plenty of people who don't get on with Terry Pratchett's writing. If you want to find out whether Terry Pratchett is for you, I think Mort is a great novel to start, because it stands alone. It introduces you to many concepts and ideas of the Discworld, and it also introduces you to many settings on the Discworld, and it does that through a character who is so integral to this world building that if you get Death, if you get Mort, you kind of get the Discworld as a whole. So that was it for this review. This was the 9th video in my 12 Decades of Christmas video, in which I talk about one book every day from the 1900s to the 2010s. So in the 12 days leading up to Christmas, there's a book review video coming out every day from a different decade. We're nearly at the end now. This was the 9th video. Tomorrow's video is going to be from the 1990s. And if you're interested in the other reviews, do check out the playlist linked in the description box. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!